This is Chris Kelly with your next exercise assignment, the bodyweight squat. All right. And once again, the bodyweight squat is one of the first exercises that we're just going to watch the person do in training, so we can know whether or not we can weight it up safely. All right. So what I'm going to do is just place a box behind the client. All right. I'm going to demonstrate the exercise. I'm going to ask them to just get their butt down in the box and come back up 10 times. All right. Simple cues. I'm going to let them see me do it. I'm going to demonstrate it. Just give 1 or 2 cues and just see if they can do it. All right. So, you know, we might see something like this where the client is going to lean forward excessively. Okay. Another thing that we often see is the client coming forward on their toes excessively. Okay. And really with this, the key thing that I'm looking for is whether or not the client is able to hinge from their hips. All right. One of the most important things that we're going to teach them is the hip hinge, right? A hip hinge is simply leading with the hips, right? Sticking your butt out like a bad dance move. That's one of the cues that I'm going to give them. But, you know, and for somebody that's new at this, I simply tell them to sit down. Okay? The hip hinge is the act of just sitting back on their heels and using their hips versus their lower back and their knees. All right? If we see somebody doing this where they're coming forward on their toes and they sit down like that, okay, chances are they're going to have knee pain, lower back pain. Something is not right there because they're not using kind of the right muscles, right? So, you know, if they can't get down here, if they're not, we see them coming forward on their toes or whatever it may be, okay, what I'm going to do is just simply place, you know, some sort of an object here, something to, you know, something that makes it a little bit higher, that reduces the range of motion. Okay, the question is, can they come up and down? Okay, if they cannot at that point, if they're still kind of doing this, then I know that I have to teach them the movement. Okay, so in that case, the first thing we're going to do is just what we call a potty squat. All right, so literally, I'm just going to sit them down. I'm going to say stand up, sit down, hands out as a counterbalance. And the beauty of this is, you know, you can adjust them. You know, if they're here, you can tell them to sit back on the heels, feet in front, press through the heels, stand straight up. Okay, this is the first progression, you know, and then from there we would go into more of a touch and go situation where I'm just coming up and down, you know, and eventually we can move it down until they can get to parallel. All right, once that is the case, and I know that they can do that pretty well, I know that I can probably weight them up safely and start to move them on to things like goblet squats, front squatting, that sort of thing. But in this context, your assignment, okay, is to prescribe how we would start with a client who is doing this. Okay, it's a client, the classic, coming forward onto their toes. All right, you ask them to squat, they lean forward, come forward onto their toes. Right. So the question is, where do we start this person? How do we clean this up? What are some cues that you could utilize to make this person do what you want them to do, which would look like this? I want them to sit back on their heels, use their hips, come forward. All right, back, forward, knee stays over the toes. All right, so how do we get them from dismal and pathetic into the position that we want them to be in? All right, I want the exercise, I want where we start the exercise, I want a couple of key cues, and then I want progressions. How can we make it harder? How can we make it easier? That's your assignment.